Let's bring in Evie Poumpouras, MSNBC law enforcement analyst, former Secret Service special agent, national security journalist, and author of Becoming Bulletproof: Life Lessons from a Secret Service Agent. Evie, I'm glad you're here. I want to ask you what questions you would ask the Secret Service Director, Kimberly Cheadle, if you were on that House committee. What's burning in your mind? Like, you got to know.
I think what we want to know is what the security plan was, what they created, and there's definitely a paper trail that you can follow. There's logistics, drawings, diagrams, like there's that. And then the conversations had between the Secret Service and local law enforcement, what was agreed upon, and then what actually ended up happening. And I think that's where the bit of the hiccup lies. It's like a plan was put in place. It seems that there was an issue with communication, and it also seems that the assets that should have been located to that building perhaps were not located or designated to that building. So that's really what I'd want to know, is the plan that was put in place, the plan that ultimately came to come into fruition.
Are there questions that Cheadle could face that are impossible to answer right now without a completed investigation?
I feel that it's probably completed at this point, because when you're doing these advances, you're communicating. You have to think of U.S. Secret Service like they're the conductor of the orchestra. And then they have other entities, local law enforcement, state police, that work with them. So ultimately, they're the ones who absorb that information. I don't know how much more in depth you need to go other than speaking with law enforcement, talking to the agents that did put the site plan together. Also, there's an advance team, Alex, that goes out. They go out a week before. So they're the ones who've actually talked to the locals. So I think that's what's going to really set the tone, like what conversations do they have? And quite honestly, text messages or emails, if there's any information or anything tangible that the U.S. Secret Service can show and say, look, I communicated with this law enforcement entity. This is what we agreed upon, or vice versa. There is nothing to confirm that. So I think you're going to be looking at those things to really confirm and solidify what the story actually is.
There are some, and this is disturbing, right-wing figures that are blaming the female Secret Service agents that were with Trump the day of the assassination attempt. They're drudging up all sorts of sexist and strange anti-DEI rhetoric. Homeland Security Director, along with others, including the Secret Service Director, released a statement today saying those assertions made are insulting and baseless. I've got to think you agree with that, too. I mean, what goes through your mind when you hear that?
I will say this. If you're going to be an agent, you have to meet all the physical standards, male or female. That's one thing. I agree with that. Like, everybody has to be physically fit and mentally fit to do this job. The latter thing I would say is this. If it's going to be a gender thing, and if we're going to play the gender blame game, let's play it right. Who were the law enforcement officials who spotted the shooter and neglected to say anything right away, and also lost line of sight? Who are the individuals that did not pass the information to the U.S. Secret Service about the suspicious person until 40 minutes later? Who are the law enforcement officials positioned at the staging area where the individual took the shot? And I think we saw a little bit of a video. They seemed like they were male to me. I could be wrong. And I also want to know who were the decision makers who had President Trump take the stage despite knowing all these things were happening. If they're all women, fair game, then have that conversation. But if they're not, and if they're all men, you might want to have a very different conversation.
Is there any other way to classify what happened other than as a serious security failure? I mean, who's going to be held responsible for it? Do you expect resignations? And if so, who?
You know, I want to say this, and I saw some of the footage from the RNC. I understand the heat that the director has taken, but at the same time, when I saw the footage of the senators harassing and following the director, she's the director of the U.S. Secret Service. There's a time and place to have these discussions. They're going to do it. They're going to have a hearing. I saw that video, actually, and I was quite taken aback because everyone's talking about the vitriol and the hate and toning it down. And yet I'm watching these senators harass the director, a person who has dedicated, not a woman, but a person who has dedicated her life to serving and protecting others. And to be treated like that by other public officials. And then also, too, Alex, what tone are they setting? We're wanting to set a better tone for people to follow so that we don't have this divisiveness. But yet you're on the RNC floor, not the time or the place to do this. And actually, if you watch that video from the beginning, you can hear the director listening, nodding, and then saying to them at one point, This isn't a time or place. We can have this discussion elsewhere. So I think these are really important things to keep in mind. Whether they want her to resign or not, I think there should be a certain level of class and tact and also respect for someone who's dedicated their life to serving the country and their people.
You're frankly 100% right. There should be that. Do you think she will keep her job?
I don't know. I don't know, but you know, to be quite frank, I've seen Homeland Security Mayorkas take a lot of heat, and I've seen a lot of public officials demanding his resignation, and he's still there. So I think it might also be on her whether she wants to endure this or not. It all depends. Is there a security issue? There is. Nobody can deny this. I think what needs to come out is what happened. And I suspect that a lot of the issue will be toward local law enforcement. It's not to blame, because here's the thing, and this is the conundrum the Secret Service is in. They need local law enforcement. You work with them. I work with them. You cannot do this alone. So you need their help. So if there was a mix up there or a mistake made on that part, it's how do you put that out front? And hopefully the investigation will reveal that, so the director's not put in the spot to say this department is in charge. But at the same time, you have to have that clarity. If somebody else did make that mistake, yes, you own it. You're the director. I understand. But you also have to put out there, like, who did what and what decisions were made.
100%. Evie Poumpouras, it's good to see you. Thank you so much.